In a world where supply chains can break and electricity isn't always guaranteed, the Amish remind us that with the right knowledge, we can all be better prepared. If you're thinking about going off-grid or homesteading, there's no better group to learn from. While most of us rely on electricity, refrigeration, and a constant supply of groceries, the Amish have spent centuries mastering the art of living without them. Their food storage methods aren't old-fashioned, they're time-tested, incredibly efficient, and could be the key to long-term off-grid living. The Amish have perfected ways to store food year-round without refrigerators or freezers. From root cellars that act like nature's refrigerator, to fermentation that preserves food for months, and ancient canning techniques, their methods ensure survival and self-reliance. Before we dive in, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss any of our deep dives. And let us know in the comments, which of these Amish food storage methods would you like to see a full video on? And if you're interested in building food security, there's a lot we can learn from Amish culture. Let's start with one of their most trusted storage methods, root cellars. Imagine having a refrigerator that doesn't need electricity, one that keeps your food fresh using nothing but the earth itself. Root cellars have been used for centuries, and they're one of the simplest yet most effective ways to store food off-grid. By digging into the ground, the Amish take advantage of the Earth's natural insulation. Below the frost line, temperatures stay consistently cool, usually between 32 and 50 degrees Fahrenheit, depending on depth and location. That's cold enough to keep fruits, vegetables, and even some dairy products fresh for months without the need for electricity. In root cellars, you can store just about anything that thrives in cool, humid conditions. Think potatoes, carrots, onions, turnips, beets, and apples. To prevent rot, the Amish use several time-tested techniques. They layer root vegetables in damp sand to maintain moisture, wrap apples individually to keep them from touching, and hang onions and garlic in bundles for better airflow. Some foods, like cabbage, are stored in barrels or crates with a damp covering to keep them from drying out. These small details make a big difference in how long the food lasts. But root cellars aren't just for fresh produce. Many Amish families also keep their home canned goods, pickled vegetables, and fermented foods stored here, taking full advantage of the consistent temperature to extend shelf life. Even in the dead of winter, when the ground is frozen solid, you could walk down to your root cellar and pull out crisp apples, firm potatoes, and garden-grown vegetables. This is off-grid food security at its finest. But what about foods that can't be stored underground? The Amish have another solution: canning and preserving. Long before refrigeration or freezers, people preserved food by canning, pickling, fermenting, and drying. The Amish have mastered these simple, time-tested techniques of preserving food for months, even years. Canning is at the heart of their food storage system. By sealing food in airtight jars, they can keep fruits, vegetables, and even meats fresh without electricity. One of the simplest methods is water bath canning. This technique uses boiling water to create a vacuum seal, preserving high-acid foods like jams, tomatoes, and pickled vegetables. That small pop means the jar is sealed tight, safe from bacteria, and able to sit on a shelf for months. But water bath canning doesn't work for everything. For low-acid foods like beans, corn, and even meats, the Amish use pressure canning. This method reaches much higher temperatures, ensuring that bacteria like botulism are completely destroyed. This means that even meat, something most people rely on freezers for, can be stored for over a year, ready to be used whenever it's needed. The Amish also pickle their food to preserve it. Pickling uses vinegar and salt to create an acidic environment that keeps food from spoiling. Cucumbers, beets, eggs, and even watermelon rinds are preserved this way, making them last for months. And then there's fermentation, a technique that not only preserves food, but enhances its nutritional value. Unlike pickling, which uses vinegar, fermentation relies on natural bacteria to break down sugars and create lactic acid, which prevents spoilage while adding rich, complex flavors. The Amish use fermentation to make sauerkraut and even dairy-based ferments like kefir. These foods don't just last for months, They also provide beneficial probiotics that improve digestion. But what about fresh meat? Without refrigeration, how do the Amish keep it from spoiling? The answer: smoking and salt curing. Let's take a look at how they preserve meat for months without a freezer. For the Amish, preserving meat for months, or even years, is a necessity. They accomplish this with a combination of smoking, salting, and curing, techniques that have been used for centuries to keep meat safe and flavorful. Salting is one of the oldest preservation methods in the world. By drawing moisture out of the meat, salt prevents bacteria from growing, keeping it safe to eat for months without refrigeration. The Amish use dry curing, where the meat is packed in salt, and wet curing, where it's soaked in a salty brine for days or weeks. Once salted, much of the meat is smoked, a process that not only adds incredible flavor, but also extends its shelf life. The Amish use slow, cool smoking over hardwoods like hickory or applewood, which coats the meat in antimicrobial compounds, helping it stay preserved for months. Ham, bacon, and sausages are some of the most commonly smoked meats in Amish households. Once fully cured, they can be stored in cool pantries, wrapped in cloth, or even hung from rafters in their homes. Not all meat is smoked, though. Some is canned for long-term storage, while other cuts are coated in lard to keep air and bacteria out. Every method ensures that the Amish always have protein on hand, even in the harshest winters. Beyond fresh foods and preserved meats, the Amish also store large quantities of dry goods, grains, beans, flour, and other staples that can last for years if stored properly. Without supermarkets or freezers, these pantry essentials ensure they always have the ingredients they need. The Amish buy or harvest grains in bulk: wheat, oats, cornmeal, and rice, storing them in large barrels or cloth sacks to keep them dry and free from pests. To prevent spoilage, dry goods are stored in airtight containers, often made of glass or metal. This keeps moisture out and stops insects from getting in. Some Amish also use natural pest deterrents like diatomaceous earth, a fine powder that prevents bugs from infesting stored grains without using chemicals. Flour and milled grains are stored in cool, dry places, often in glass jars to prevent exposure to air and humidity. Some Amish families grind their own flour from whole wheat berries just before baking to keep it as fresh as possible. Instead of relying on store-bought flour that can go stale, many Amish families mill their own grain using hand-cranked mills. This ensures a steady supply of fresh flour without the need for refrigeration or preservatives. Dried beans, rice, and pasta are also essential staples. They require no refrigeration, take up little space, and can provide hearty, filling meals throughout the year. With these dry goods, the Amish can make everything from bread and porridge to soups and stews, ensuring they always have access to nutritious, homemade meals, no matter the season. And just like the Amish, homesteaders and off-grid families can use these same techniques to build a well-stocked pantry that lasts for years without depending on grocery stores. Fresh dairy is one of the most challenging foods to store without refrigeration, but the Amish have developed multiple ways to keep milk, butter, and cheese fresh for longer without relying on modern technology. One of their oldest methods is using a spring house, a small stone or wooden building built over a cold, running stream. The naturally cool water keeps milk and dairy products fresh longer, similar to how an old-fashioned icebox would work. Milk cans are placed directly in the cold water, slowing the spoiling process and keeping dairy cool for several days without electricity. But since fresh milk doesn't last long, the Amish quickly turn it into longer-lasting products. Butter is one of the easiest ways to preserve dairy. By separating the cream and churning it into solid form, it lasts much longer and can even be stored in cool pantries or cellars. Some Amish use butter crocks filled with cold water or brine to keep butter fresh for weeks at room temperature. Another way they preserve dairy is by making cheese. Cheese naturally lasts much longer than fresh milk, and by aging it in cool cellars, Amish families can store it for months or even years. Some cheeses are coated in wax to seal in moisture and protect them from spoilage, while others are air-dried to create a hard, long-lasting rind. These traditional methods mean that even without refrigeration, Amish families can enjoy dairy products year-round. whether it's fresh milk, creamy butter, or aged cheese. For generations, the Amish have lived without modern conveniences, proving that food storage doesn't require electricity, just knowledge, preparation, and time-tested techniques. The Amish have perfected the art of self-sufficiency. Their methods aren't just relics of the past, they are practical, reliable ways to store food that anyone can use. Whether you're a homesteader, living off-grid, or simply someone looking to be more self-reliant, these traditional skills offer a blueprint for food security. How would you store food off-grid? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell for more insights into off-grid living and self-sufficiency.